All right, I believe we are live. Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Tone Talks Geopolitics on his own personal YouTube channel, which hopefully won't be banned for a little while, but we will see. We will all be surprised together. And welcome, Patrick, Bitcoin motorist, is going to come and help me out. I am using the mic that everyone complains about. This is the mic at this workstation. I am ready to switch mics. So if this gets very, very bad, let me know. All right. Oh yeah, I see on YouTube that. Oh yeah, Patrick, it got you on the opposite side on the YouTube channel. I'm on the left, you're on the right. When you're looking at YouTube, I have no idea how to flip that. So
Okay, no worries. It's all good. Just so everyone at home knows, I'm looking at Tone. I'm not looking away from him, even though on YouTube looks like I'm looking away from him. We're trying to figure out how to either switch the two pictures or to reverse my image so it looks like I'm looking for Tone. But don't worry about it.
yeah. Um, Yeah, it's okay. I'm going to be on screen share most of the time anyway. People are saying mic sounds fine. The moment mic's not fine, I'll be able to switch mics. I'm not going to bitch and complain about that today. A couple of topics. We're going to go take a look at the price of Bitcoin. Patrick and I were having an interesting discussion over the Alec Baldwin trial. I actually had no idea Alec Baldwin was on trial. I remember the stupidity of, again, another liberal moron not knowing how to properly use a gun. And of course, he didn't check if the gun was loaded and ended up shooting somebody on the set. Personally, I think this is stupidity. I don't really know how it's his fault, other than uh, I mean, whoever the gun safety person is the one that should have been arrested. I don't know why aren't they on trial alongside Alec Baldwin, but he's the big name. He's the one with the money. Quick update, Patrick, because I'm really curious on what's going on here because uh, is it the family suing him? Is it the state of California suing him? I mean, California, I mean, Hollywood hates guns, even though they make movies about guns, but what's going on over there?
Yeah, this is a very interesting trial, and I've been following you very closely. Now, interestingly enough, you said that it wasn't his fault, and that's kind of Alec Baldwin, the defense's position as well. It wasn't his fault; he's an actor. To bolster that argument, the armor on the set, a woman by the name of Hannah Gutierrez, was tried and convicted for bringing live rounds on set, and she was convicted of involuntary manslaughter. So she's facing 18 months in prison. Now we'll see. They're trying to appeal it. She was sentenced to 18 months in prison. She's in prison right now. Now they're most likely because of I'm kind of getting ahead of this, but what's happening in the courtroom today is they might appeal her conviction because there was evidence that was not shared with the defense. But the funny thing is that the evidence that the defense is arguing wasn't shared with them had nothing to do with whether Alec Baldwin, pointed the gun at someone and pulled the trigger. So I don't think it's material. It's not. That's not what he's charged with. He's not charged with bringing live rounds on set. He's charged with not checking the gun and pointing it at someone and firing it. That's what he's charged with. So that's why he's charged with involuntary manslaughter.
Okay,
And it's in New Mexico. The trial
back
is
up,
in New
back up,
Mexico.
back
Sorry.
up. Well, was this okay, so when I said it's not exactly his fault, I might have gotten a little bit ahead of myself here. Was this literally part of the shooting scene, or was this them messing around and I mean, I don't know the details, right? Like, was this actually during camera shooting when they put the gun in his hand and said, we're recording fire, or was this them messing around? Without cameras rolling, because then if they were messing around without cameras rolling, then yeah, he has some serious culpability here, but probably, and the trial makes total sense.
And correct. And so there is some discussion about this because the prosecution's theory is that this was not a rehearsal and it was not filming either, so that he had no actual reason to have his finger on the trigger. That's the prosecution's theory.
Okay, that completely changes it. I honestly, like I said, I didn't know the details. I really thought that this happened. The director says, let's go rolling, and then he fires,
Yeah.
for the cameras, and then someone gets killed.
No, it was
Okay,
not. They were
so
not shooting a scene. What they were doing is, I think, what they were doing is they were trying to set up the camera shot to see how it looks in the camera shot before they filmed the scene. So he was just kind of practicing pulling out his revolver, and he had his finger on the trigger, and he wasn't supposed to have his. Now, if Hannah Gutierrez hadn't put live rounds in the revolver, it wouldn't matter. But she did. He didn't check it. Now, interestingly enough, there was another actor. in the movie named Jensen Ackles, and he was when the filming stopped after the death occurred, after Helena Hutchins was killed. When the filming stopped, and then they resumed filming like a year later or something. They replaced that actor, so they replaced Jensen Ackles with another actor. But the actor who was there that was like chasing Alec Baldwin in the movie, he says that there's an interview with him with the police, and he says that he doesn't care if someone tells him when they hand him the gun that the gun is a cold gun. He always checks it to make sure that it's cold, which is one of the reasons why the defense team does not want Jensen Ackles' police interview to be admitted to evidence, because the jury is going to look at his interview and say, no, I always check the gun. I don't care when somebody says cold gun, whatever. I'm like, yeah, I understand it's cold gun. I'm still checking it. But Alec Baldwin, obviously he knows better. He's too much of a celebrity. He shouldn't have to do any safety checks. That's just for other people to worry about.
Yeah. And anytime I see this, you know what it reminds me of? And we are gonna, glance at the charts in a minute. I'm gonna go straight to screen share. It reminds me of the courtroom scene, not an acting scene, but a real courtroom scene from Kyle Rittenhouse's trial. Kyle, there he is.
Yeah.
Rittenhouse, not defense, sorry, prosecutor points gun at jury.
Oh yes. I actually, thanks for reminding me of this, because I want to mention something about this. Actually, he pulled an Alec Baldwin.
What's that? What did you say, Patrick?
I said he pulled an Alec Baldwin, and something similar happened on Hanny Gutierrez's trial, the trial with the armor, where the witness picked up the gun and was pointing it at the judge, and the judge was like, "Can you please not point the gun at me?" Something similar happened in Hanny Gutierrez's trial.
If that was me sitting in the jury and this fucking happened, you would have lost my fucking shit. Well, like, like the judge would have, like, potentially throwing me in prison with the scene I would have made. I would have been ape shit on this prosecutor. If I was sitting in the jury and he pointed like a fucking semi at me.
Maybe you could pull up that picture. I don't know if that's available on Google as easily as. By the way, your audio is kind of. I don't know if they can still understand. Your audio is kind of like fading in and out, but I can still understand most of what you're saying. So in Hanny Gutierrez's trial, I forget what the name of the witness was, but he picked up the gun and he pointed it at the judge. Excuse me, I'm a little sick today.
Dude, this is mic sounds bad. All right, I'll switch mics. I don't know what to do.
Oh yeah, that sounds better. By the way, Tone, there was a comment. Because I'm on live with you, I don't know if I could share it with you in the DMs. But if you could look at the very first comment, I don't know if you've seen that or not. It's something you may want to pay attention to. I don't know if it's true or not. The very first comment on YouTube. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, I don't know if Murad sold his Twitter account. I just know that, I don't know, a few months ago, I saw some, I was tagged in some tweets where people are pointing to Murad and how he's a total shitcoiner now. I think the more likely, I think it's more likely Murad became a shitcoiner instead of Murad selling his Twitter account, but it could be either. I don't know. Not my fucking problem, guys. I really couldn't care less.
Buyer beware.
Yeah.
Tone, what I wanted to say about this trial is yesterday there's a guy named Alexander Peta, who was the Italian guy who actually manufactured the gun that Alec Baldwin used to kill Helena Hutchins. And he was on the stand and he said, I manufactured this gun. I checked it. It was working perfectly fine. The only way to fire this gun is to cock the hammer back and pull the trigger. And if you don't cock the hammer back and pull the trigger, it's not going to fire. And he said, I checked it and it was taken to a proofing house and they checked it and it was in perfect working order. Now, sorry, my point isn't that he was saying that it was in perfect working order. My point is that they handed him the gun, the actual gun, which was basically dismantled and destroyed by the FBI. And it was like in pieces. They handed him the actual gun in a box. And it was like in a white cardboard box. He opened it up. And the way that the gun was sitting inside the box, even though the cylinder was taken out of it and the parts were removed from it, the barrel was pointing towards the jury. He wasn't touching the gun, but just to show how much of a gun safety expert this guy is, he rotated the box. I don't think anyone noticed this. I think there was very few people who actually ever noticed. He actually took the gun and he rotated it so that the barrel wasn't pointing at anyone. He wanted to make sure the barrel on a gun that he wasn't touching, on a gun that had no cylinder, that couldn't fire, even on that gun, he still had gun safety, something that Alec Baldwin would never understand, what this prosecutor in the Rittenhouse trial would never understand.
Oh no, I mean the prosecutors wouldn't understand gun safety. If they understood gun safety, they wouldn't be prosecutors. I mean it's
Many lawyers are not gun experts.
no, no. I mean like there are certainly lawyers that know guns very well. They just wouldn't be working for the government. Anyway,
And they asked the jurors if they own guns before they, select them. They asked jurors if they own guns, if they like guns, if they're anti-gun. And I don't know if someone said they're anti-gun, if you're Alec Baldwin, would you want them on the jury or would you not want them on the jury? Maybe if they're anti-gun, they would be like, hey, you should have been extra careful. So they wouldn't want them on the jury. Or maybe if they're anti-gun, they're like, well, guns are dangerous and they don't understand guns, and they would be more likely to think Alec Baldwin wasn't at fault. So I don't even know if a juror answered that they were again anti-gun or if they were pro-gun.
That's a really good question. If I was Alec Baldwin, I would probably prefer the anti-gun jury, because the anti-gun jury will blame the gun. They would never blame Alec Baldwin.
Yeah, that's my thinking also.
It's the pro-gun jury that would blame the person pulling the trigger, not the gun itself.
Yeah. And you obviously wouldn't want somebody that works at a nuclear facility to be on the jury, because that's what happened in the first trial. There was a guy on the jury who worked at a nuclear facility, and he had all these safety checks that he had to go through every single day at work. And so that's the last guy you want on the jury. The fact that the defense attorney allowed that guy, didn't ask him what his job was, didn't ask him about that, and let him on the jury was malpractice on the defense attorney.
You're probably not going to want a pilot on there either, unless they fly for United. But anyway, let's glance at the charts. Bitcoin is, of course, struggling, and not a surprise by me that Bitcoin is struggling. Bitcoin was doing very, very well, and bam, we got crushed a few hours ago at 3 p.m. Eastern time. As you guys know, that's exactly what I expected. I talked about it with Matt this morning on the Financial Summit YouTube channel. And the reason why I'm expecting a big drop in the price of Bitcoin is because I think the stock market has topped. Now, the stock market on the S&P somehow managed to make a new high today, and then it got smacked down at 3 p.m. I talked about this in detail this morning, how the Bitcoin chart doesn't really matter right now, and the only charts that do matter are the charts of stocks like Tesla, Nvidia, and NASDAQ. And mostly the NASDAQ here. The NASDAQ tops on a weekly MRI top, monthly MRI top, and exactly on the day of the daily MRI top as well. And so that's pretty much what I'm looking at on the price of Bitcoin. Gold has been rallying really, really nicely. Here's the weekly chart on gold. It's back to a new all-time high, actually. As far as the weekly close is concerned, it's on a new all-time high, and that's very bullish for gold. So something has to give. So it looks like gold is absorbing a lot of the inflow of capital. The U.S. government continues to buy oil into the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. A little surprising with the election coming up. We already discussed the clown show that was the U.S. presidential debate. Biden is in a whole other world. He just referred to Kamala Harris as Vice President Trump or President Trump. I heard he referred to Zelensky as President Putin.
Both correct.
What's up?
Both correct.
Yeah, and it's just a giant disaster. Oh, I see Bitcoin Mechanic is in the audience. Hey, man, welcome. I do want to talk a little bit more about Russia-Ukraine. Maybe we pick up from the last subject we discussed as well. So there's a couple of stocks that people have been asking me to look at. Let me go do that now before I forget. I don't actually have them, or maybe I have Starbucks. Starbucks, haven't looked at it in forever. Let's look at that. I don't like it here. I know there's a green diamond, so Matt McGregor would be happy. The alphanumerics is flipping between bullish and bearish. That has to do with the modified lucid SAR that he has. I don't like this chart at all. It's like a triple bottom here, double bottom more recently. This looks like it's ready to cave in. I guess not a lot of coffee drinkers, or people are looking for alternatives to Starbucks.
Yeah, Starbucks is struggling because people aren't paying for overpriced coffee anymore. They're making their coffee at home. Is it okay if I shoot Mechanic a link to jump on?
If he wants to jump on.
Okay, I'll send it to him.
I don't mind. What else we got? Let me look at one more stock. Nike, I think. Someone asked for Nike. See, Nike I like better. Only because it's already made its low. Though I don't like the double bottom versus COVID. I mean, Nike is so beaten up that a short-term relief rally could do something here. But the weekly chart's very weak. Like, this is not the stock you want to buy. It looks very weak. Let me compare it to Under Armour. Oh, Under Armour looks even worse. Yeah, not good. Not good. Looks terrible. Yeah. All right. Oh, before we go on, Patrick, you got a new gig. Tell us about it.
Yeah, absolutely, Tone. There's a very beautiful picture of me right there. So, excuse me, I've been under the weather. So basically, I'm working with Ben BTC Sessions to help people, set up their wallets, set up their multi-sig, set up their miners, set up their nodes. So, or any kind of learning about Bitcoin basics, how Bitcoin works, things like that. How to use Bitcoin privately and securely, how to store your Bitcoin, how to set up inheritance planning, all that stuff. So if anybody needs that kind of services, please go to my Twitter. There's a link to where you can book me for a session with Bitcoin Mentor, which is the company that Ben BTC Sessions is working with right now. And I've kind of just come on their team to be one of the mentors, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I had to dox myself, so there you could see my real name, which is totally fine. I was okay with that. They asked if it was okay to use your real name, and I said totally fine for trust purposes. There's my real name.
All right, so check it out if you guys are looking for Bitcoin education, tutorials. Bitcoin Mentor is the place. You can follow them on Twitter. And looking forward to having BTC Sessions at Unconfiscatable, which is coming very soon, just 2 months away. BTC Sessions will be hosting the Scammy Awards along with Nico from Simply Bitcoin, and Patrick is instrumental in helping me put together the Scammy Award nominees list and the video to display for the hosts.
Looking forward to the Scammies. It's always a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for helping out. Join us at Unconfiscatable. It will be a small event this year. Not a lot of speakers. It'll be fun. It'll be, BTC Sessions will obviously be there, and a few others. We're keeping our speaker list, fairly private until maybe the week before or something. But come, you'll have an amazing time. Definitely play in the poker tournament. Hopefully, Patrick, you'll be playing in our poker tournament as well.
I recently unretired from pokers, so maybe I will. We'll see.
Cool. I see Bitcoin Mechanic has joined us as well. Hey, buddy, how are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good. We're gonna. By the way, I only have about 40 minutes to go, and then I gotta run off to dinner. Let me get back to screen share real quick, and since I'm right here and Mechanic is on, guys, you need to help us mine Bitcoin properly on Ocean Mining Pool. All right, you've seen this on my channel a bunch of times. You can see they found a block just a few days ago. The hash rate on Ocean has been pretty consistent. You guys are back to, the top of the average that you've had. I have no idea who joined you right here the day after the halving or around the time of the halving. This is 419, right before the halving. Would be nice if they came back. Personally, I would love to see a few more blocks. The only mining pool that is properly mining Bitcoin. Mechanics, say a few words, and then we're going to move on.
Yeah, so we're doing pretty good. Our hash rate it's all right, and the network difficulty dropped a bunch, so that results in us finding a lot of blocks. So you can see it. You can see it like that we found a lot of blocks. We went dry for 2 horrible periods, one around the halving and one where your mouse is right now.
Yeah, the one around the halving really, really hurt.
Yeah, that was awful. That was the highest fees ever in Bitcoin's history, and
I
we
know.
didn't get any of it. Yeah, that sucked. But we're still paying more than other pools. So every time we hit some bad luck and still pay out more than other pools, that just highlights how bad it is with the other pools.
Yeah, so hopefully some of the other pools will run into trouble with the way they pay out their miners, and you guys get to steal some of their hash rate.
It's coming. Like, we have a lot of people that are just trying to understand it all. There's a lot of rot in the system, and there's just too many middlemen. It's really simple. There's the blockchain, there's the miner, and the more people you have between you, the less money you make. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, right? Like, if you're 50% of Ocean's hash rate, you get 50% of every block we find, and that's it. Because there's no middleman. All we do is just coordinate the split between you and other miners. And because there's all these advantages to that, we don't need to KYC our users or any of that stuff, right? So it's just better, but you do have to deal with variance. That's the only thing. That's the trade-off. So if you're wondering what do you call it, the catch is with Ocean, it's the fact that you don't actually get anything unless we find blocks.
It seems like a lot of your haters, Mechanic, have kind of gone quiet. It's because you've been proving them all wrong. I mean, it used to be that the knock on Ocean was, oh, nobody's going to mine on a alternative. That was disproven quickly. And then,
Hey,
like,
Patrick, your audio is breaking up. I didn't understand what you said.
We had a lot of haters.
I'll just mute myself.
We had a lot of haters at the beginning, and it was mainly around the spam stuff. And then we made that up to the miners whether they want to mine it or not, which was the whole point. And that reason to bash us is gone now. It doesn't make any sense. And the spam is kind of gone too. Like, the Taproot Wizards are dead. BRC20 is dead. Stamps are dead. Runes are still around, but they're just op return and a small amount of it. So they end up in Ocean's blocks too, because we're not about to kill op return. We still give it as an option for miners on the data free template, but killing op return is that's way more significant than killing the Taproot Wizards or Bear Multisig or those other forms of spam. So yeah, there isn't really much left to hate about us now. There's two hangups that people have around Ocean. One is that, like I said, with the cash flow, if we go on a run of bad luck, that means you don't get any money. But I mean, if we go on a run of good luck, that means you get more money. So as long as you can withstand having bad cash flow or additional transients, then you just make more money. That's a trade-off rather than a hang-up. The other thing is this tax loophole that's driving me crazy. Where Tone, you were at the launch, and remember when I was talking about people hashing and not mining, and the whole point was to turn miners into actual miners again and to do more of the process. So I didn't realize at the time that the way the Canadian government has structured stuff, and I believe the US government as well, is to make miners have to pay way more tax if they mine directly and get coins from the blockchain. So they have this thing now where they call themselves rented hash rate, and they get paid by the pool. They get employed by the pool for their compute, and it has nothing to do with what goes on the blockchain. And in Canada, if you're a Bitcoin miner, you pay 30%. But if you just rent your hash rate to Foundry, who offer that product to rent your hash rate, you only pay 15% tax. So these guys are not allowed to mine Bitcoin. They're only allowed to rent their Bitcoin miners to miners, if that makes sense. So they're telling everyone we are not Bitcoin miners. We don't go near it. And I didn't realize that the like speak to Bitfarms and speak to Hut 8 and speak to a few other of those Canadian mining companies, and they'll tell you that's how everything has to be structured. There might be a way around it, but that's been the one insurmountable thing when dealing with public companies.
Well, it sounds like these companies shouldn't be American or Canadian, and companies looking for a better jurisdiction to operate from need to go over to the Tone Vays YouTube channel and catch my interview with Eric from Prospera over in Rotan. So that's another plug for Rotan and their financial jurisdiction that is coming. So I will be, this is potentially my future home. So those that are interested, check out this video, inquire. There's a form. Of course, drop my name if you reach out to anyone over at Prospera, so they know where that I'm helping, because I do want to help what they are trying to build there.
I will say I did go over and find him in Prague after you sent me
Oh,
that
nice.
interview you did with him. It's a great interview. I will say anyone should watch that. I really like what they're doing. I really like that Democracy Now doesn't like what they're doing because, as you say, they're a bunch of fucking hippies, and I can smell them from here every time I watch their TV show. But I asked him about mining there, and he was like, "Don't even think about it. It's like 50 cents a kilowatt hour or something." So he was like, "No, don't even try."
No, not mining there, but using their
Yeah.
jurisdiction as a mining company.
Yeah, that's a good point. Colin, I wanted to ask you about politics. I don't know if I missed it, and I've missed
No,
most.
I haven't gotten there yet. Give me 1 second here. I just want to point out that the Bitcoin ETFs continue to buy Bitcoin every day this week. We don't have today's data yet, but so far this week, they've been buying. The German government's been selling, but I think the German government only has like 5,000 Bitcoin left. So hopefully they will finish selling their Bitcoin. Mt. Gox has like 140,000 Bitcoin, and we don't know if they're going to sell them or not. So there could be some more headwinds in that direction. Just want to go through all of these crazy announcements first before we get into politics. I watched the Senate hearing between the House of Representatives and Jerome Powell. I have to point out this buffoon out of, well, Chicago, or close enough to Chicago. What a surprise! Who got Jerome Powell so pissed. I thought he was going to get off the podium and actually punch this guy in the face, because he tried to like be very stern with that the Federal Reserve needs to have its mandatory high-end mandate. Forget about stable prices. Forget about full employment. The only thing you need to solve is climate change. This was basically what this guy was implying at a Senate hearing versus Jerome Powell, and why the Federal Reserve is not front and center leading the charge on climate change. And Jerome Powell, well, I've never seen him as pissed as he was in answering this guy's, stern questions.
Hilarious, man.
Yeah, it was a giant insanity. Everything has fallen into place. As I stated on Twitter Spaces, the CPI was going to come in low. In fact, this is actually a drop in inflation. No one believes it, but that's what the numbers say. And so the CPI is dropping. The producer inflation is rising. So it shows that they can fudge this number, and they forgot to fudge the other number. And I believe Jerome Powell is going to lower the interest rate in September. I don't think he's going to lower it this time. And this is exactly what it's looking like. He's not going to get any more data. The unemployment came in a smidge higher, but not high enough. CPI came in a smidge lower, but not low enough. But by the time September 18 rolls around, there will be 2 more unemployment readings, and I'm sure they're going to come in a little bit higher. And there'll be 1 more CPI reading, and I'm sure that's going to come in a little bit lower. And that would allow Jerome Powell to lower the interest rate in September for his one and only interest rate lowering this year. So that's my view on CPI. Do we have anything else before we get into full-blown politics?
Well, did you
If
do
you look
Germany selling?
Germany selling Bitcoin,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I mentioned it a few minutes ago. I don't know if you were listening 2 minutes ago.
Well, it's I can't remember the guy's name, but someone pointed it out. It was stolen Bitcoin, right? So according to Germany's law, they had to sell it. So everyone's like making fun all over Twitter about Germany selling Bitcoin and being idiots, but they can have some Bitcoin. It's just that this bunch of Bitcoin, according to their own law, they had to sell it all. They're not allowed to keep it. That's just what they do with stolen property in Germany. So like,
But okay, but that's stupidity, right? Like what do they do with the money from that stolen property?
I don't know.
Well, why can't they just buy the same big? Why can't you just buy a different Bitcoin back, right? Like, it's
Yeah, good point.
I think Germany is I mean, Germany is the one place where you don't want to cross the street if the light isn't green in your favor, and none of them ever do. But no, it's just stupid. It's suddenly Bitcoin is property. Since when, in their opinion, Bitcoin is fucking property, right? So,
Germany's one of the better places for taxing it, to be fair. I think if you have it for 1 year or more, there's no capital gains tax.
yeah. Hold on 1 second. Uh, People are calling me on a live stream.
We definitely have a demand in the comments to switch to geopolitics talk. I guess people don't even want to hear about Bitcoin anymore. They just want to hear geopolitics.
Well, this
Yeah.
is my whole thing at the moment is going full Joe Biden. Like we absolutely have to force these people to stick with the guy they've been telling us is totally fit for the job for the last 4 years. We need to actually be like, yeah, all right, so stick with him then. You got to run with him because watching all these snakes like the Young Turks and the New York Times and all those guys turn on Biden now and start going on about, the same shit he's been doing for the last 15 years. It's just now we're just doing their job for them. That's what drives me crazy about it. Like the more we attack Biden now, the easier it is for the Dems to put Newsom in or someone like that. They need to be like it literally. We have to go to the other side of the seesaw now and be.
No, I'm totally considering voting for Biden. I mean, just rip the Band-Aid. Let's get this shit over with. Let's have him reelected so people can actually see the stupidity of America. This is why America is going down the toilet.
This is
See, it
acceleration.
would have been nice to have an actual primary where primary Democrat voters could actually vote for their candidate instead of just saying, no, it's got to be Biden. We can't vote on this. It's too important to vote on this. Well, that might have been interesting if you wanted Newsom or anybody else RFK in there.
But I mean, the amount of electoral fraud that went on last election that is still coming out. One of the co-founders for Ocean was involved in a bunch of lawsuits suing the governors in those states where there were the more obviously rigged ones. I think it was Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin,
Don't forget
Pennsylvania.
Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona was bad too, and Nevada. There was 6 states that were just obviously rigged, and people have gone back through the records. Someone I know was registered as a Democrat there and voted for Biden, even though it was illegal. She was, lived in another state and was voting in another state and wasn't definitely would never vote for Biden or the Democrats. So it seems that like I don't know what the goal is, but I imagine the Democrats oust Biden, they replace him with some other asshole, and then that guy gets rigged and wins the election, and that's it.
That's what I've been saying. I've been saying that. Oh, I see Joe Colasari is in the live chat. Joe, welcome to join and talk politics with us. Let me send you the link.
Yeah, I just
Joe,
think they're not going to. I think it's not. The more they rig it, and the less of a reaction there is, like it's like a bluff. They're calling our bluff. They're like, you're not going to revolt over it. Like we will rig the election in front of your face, and what are you going to do about it? You're going to have a little rally in January 6th. Okay, we'll lock
Oh
up
no,
half
okay,
of you.
motorists, you haven't seen my show in a while, so I've discussed this actually. So I actually discussed it last show. This is why I'm pulling up this just to follow up on the last show that I did a week ago. Since I was at the last little rally on January 6th, there's never going to be another one like that ever again. There will never be another protest in Washington, D.C. Not by Republicans, not by the right, not by freedom-loving people. If there is another protest in Washington, D.C., it's going to be the left. It is not going to be the right. The right will never protest in Washington, D.C. again because we all remember how the last one ended. This is the future of the U.S., okay? I believe the next set of protests will be at the state level, where if the state government, the governor of the state and the state representatives do not file for secession, then the state representatives will be in serious bodily harm trouble by the members of that state. All future protests will take place at the state level. And I think this is how the US splits. And I went through every one of these states and I was coloring them one by one. And I don't think each individual state will be able to secede on their own. The only two that even have a shot is Texas and Florida. But all these states are going to join together. And in the last show, I explained what these dashed lines mean. Just too many commies in Denver, but eventually they'll all be, kicked out through this little corridor back to California. And after this all succeeds and secedes, then individual states will be free to drop off as they like, or they will continue to be a single unit. And this is how I see the future. So I drew all these lines, and we talked about it last time. Yeah.
Do you think that will happen if Trump wins? I know mechanics said Trump's not going to win. I tend to agree with Joe Carlasari. I think that if Trump is running against Newsom or anybody else the Democrats put up, Trump will smoke him.
Yeah, I think Trump will smoke him, but they won't. They will.
I am still on the record that Trump is not winning. I am mostly on the record that Trump will not even be on the ballot.
Hold on. Now, do you mean that he will be denied having won the vote, or do you mean
mechanic? I think that the last election, the 2020 election, that the vote was close enough that it was possible to cheat because the vote in a few states was small enough. It was like within a few 100,000 or a million that it was easy to cheat. But if Trump is winning by 5 points in each state, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, okay, Patrick. I have limited time. I don't want to talk about the last election. I don't give a shit about the last election anymore. Okay, talk about the future election. Okay.
No, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the future election. I'm just saying. I'm saying they're not going to be able to cheat it.
It doesn't. No, of course they are, because they don't give a fuck. Okay. Yeah. Here's what I'm saying. People are grossly underestimating the danger that a Trump win poses to 90% of the current politicians. People have a childlike view on their misunderstanding of the danger that Trump poses to them all. So the goal is not to elect Trump. This could be done in multiple ways. Finding one more reason to keep him off the ballot, finding a way to cheat, even if he's on the ballot, or Trump happens to not be breathing when it's time to vote, right? These are the three options in front of the people that could potentially spend the rest of their life in prison, or their life is over if Trump gets elected.
Do you think the Supreme Court will go along with that, though? I don't think they will. I mean, unless...
It doesn't matter. Again, the third option that I just said, the Supreme Court's irrelevant. Right?
Exactly, for the third option, correct.
So I think people are grossly underestimating the global attempt to make sure Trump doesn't get elected. Okay? I think people are grossly underestimating that. Now, obviously, Biden is not fit to be president. I already lost my bet on that. I bet that Biden will not make it as president by January 1st of this year. I have lost that bet. Biden was president on January 1st of this year. I thought Biden would either step down or not make it due to, physical conditions, or they would replace him. For whatever reason, I thought Biden would no longer be president at this stage because I saw his cognitive decline during the last election, but apparently he got the most votes in American history. Either way, I still think that neither Trump nor Biden will be elected president next year, but my time on winning this is certainly running out. Now, the one thing I didn't mention last time as to why this split is going to be a lot more peaceful than people think, and why it's not going to be the Civil War of the 1800s. Back in the Civil War of the 1800s, first of all, Europe was backing the North. The North had the military, the North had the money, and the North had, people willing to fight. This time around, the North doesn't have a military. The military is the South. 90% of all soldiers are from the South. I'm guessing this statistic because I don't know anyone from freaking New York that's out there ready to, sign up for the military. The North, the liberals don't know how to use a gun. Okay. So now the North and the federal government may have the nuclear codes, but they're not nuking Texas. That's not going to happen, right? So where are the soldiers? The soldiers are from the South, okay? When the majority of the soldiers go back south to defend their families and their homes, the soldiers that are from the North will do one of two things. They will either go back to the North and take their families and then go south with the rest of their military friends, or they were in the military, to promote, gender rights, and they want to, be the first transgender military person, and they can stay back up in the North, right? It's there's no way in hell that the North, the military of the North, will be able to go down south and beat the South. That is not going to happen. So because of this, there will be nobody willing to fight against the South, okay? And Europe doesn't have the money to fight their own war, not to mention try to help the North keep the South. So this is why this time around, secession will be a lot more peaceful than it was back in the 1800s, okay? No way Northern Indiana is in the white. Yeah, unfortunately, Northern Indiana is in the white because they will be something has to give, right? There's way too many liberals in Chicago, and they can overwhelm North Indiana, because otherwise, if North Indiana, people from North Indiana are just going to have to move, okay? So there is a reason to this madness right here. I did this in detail on the last stream. You can watch the last stream. Unfortunately, the entire state of Michigan will be, in the communist North. The entire state of New Hampshire. Patrick and I always debated this. New Hampshire is screwed. You are surrounded by Marxists on all sides. Everyone from New Hampshire is just going to have to move. It's okay. You'll have better weather down south anyway. Okay.
We'll get Maine annexed, and New Hampshire and Maine will be their own independent country.
You will not be independent. You will be you'll have difficult time trading. You don't have enough. It's going to be hard for you to be an independent country. It won't work. Okay, Canada is going to take you over, and so this is how I think it'll be. Yeah, some areas. North New York is very Republican, but they're kind of screwed as well. Some areas are just screwed. People will just gonna have to move. That's all. But this is how I this is how I see it looking. Okay. Let's talk Russia Ukraine. Before I go to Russia Ukraine, Mechanic, did you have anything else to say?
No, I would debate a lot of what you're talking about there, but let's go to Russia, Ukraine.
Yeah, Joe Colasari and I are supposed to be doing a debate on whether America is going to split into multiple countries or not. Okay, so Russia, Ukraine, this clusterfuck is just getting worse and worse. Ukraine is now in serious trouble. I talked about this several times as well. Where are my maps from the Russia-Ukraine situation? That's okay, we can do that later. And so, oops, let me just refresh this. Everything in Russia-Ukraine is turning out to be exactly like I've been saying for 2 years. Nothing has changed. Russia has started to even move west even quicker. We talked about these regions. The peace deal that Russia offered will be by far the best deal that they're ever going to get. And Ukraine turned it down. And now Ukraine is in a lot more trouble than before. Russia is now coming in on Ukraine from the north. I don't believe they want Kharkiv. They want Ukrainian military spread out. They want them away from the line of contact. I think Russia is going to overwhelm them in the east regions, and then Russia is going after Odessa. I think the Black Sea is already a no-fly zone, and any American Black Hawk or any other unmanned aircraft is going to get shut down by the Russians, and even manned aircrafts are in danger of getting shut down by the Russians. The latest plan that they're coming up with is that Poland is going to start to create a no-fly zone on the west side of Ukraine, and the F-16s that are arriving in Ukraine will either be flying out of Romania or out of Poland, and that means that Russia potentially is going to bomb the shit out of Romanian and Polish air bases. And Russia doesn't care. They are not scared of NATO, and people still think that NATO is something. Russia wants to avoid a war with NATO, but they are ready. Finland are being total retards. And let's see if I get banned on my YouTube channel for saying that.
I got a question when you're done with your thought. Go ahead.
Okay. And they're about to place American bases all over the border. Now, as I've always stated, NATO can do two things to your country. It either brings security to your country or it diminishes security to your country. Finland, being neutral, was on very good relations with Russia. Finland not being neutral and a member of NATO has now closed the border against Russia. And putting American military bases or putting American personnel in Finland without America having any logistics on continuing to supply those bases in a supply chain will potentially have Russia bomb the shit out of these bases in Finland and then, wipe out Helsinki and all its 3,000 inhabitants for good measure. So good job, Finland, in adding security to your country. That's all I'll say on Finland. Go ahead.
Yeah, Tony, I was going to ask you, I wish I had the quote in front of me, but there was I think a Russian foreign minister that said if Ukraine joins NATO, either of these will happen. Either Ukraine will no longer exist or NATO will no longer exist. One of those two things will happen. I don't know if you heard about that, if you had any thoughts on that quote, if you agree with it.
Yeah, I heard the quote. It's being attributed to Lavrov, the foreign secretary, the equivalent of Jake Sullivan in the United States. I think, or Anthony Blinken, I forget. It was attributed to Secretary Lavrov, I don't believe Lavrov would say something like that. He's a lot more diplomatic. This sounds more like Medvedev, the former president of Russia, in between Putin's like 12 terms. And Medvedev is a little more of a hardliner, and he's the one that says crazy stuff like that. And you know what? The majority of Russians agree with him. So that is a correct statement that if Ukraine enters NATO, either NATO will not exist or Ukraine will not exist, and most likely both. That is correct.
How do you think, assuming, I know you don't think Trump's going to win, but assuming Trump does, how do you think that's going to affect the war? Will it be good for Russia, bad for Russia, neutral for Russia? What's your opinion on that? Because I think it would be bad for Russia because Trump is not going to be able to do anything diplomatically positive with Russia, because if he tries to do that, they're going to say, oh, he's doing treason or something, like as if diplomacy is the same as treason.
This is actually a very, very hard question because it can go in either direction. Things can stay the same. Things could be better for Russia. Remember, if things are better for Russia, things are better for Ukraine, right? So it depends on which side you're looking at. Personally, I think it's better for Ukraine if Ukrainians aren't getting killed and Ukrainians aren't fleeing the country. I believe that's better for Ukraine. Many Ukrainians disagree with me. Many Ukrainians think that Ukraine continuing to fight against Russia is better for Ukraine. I don't agree with that view. I agree what's best for Ukraine is peace. And if Ukraine has to lose these 4 territories and agree to be neutral, it is what's best for Ukraine, but many disagree with me on that. That's fine. We can debate it all day long. So I think that Trump could be better for Russia and Ukraine, but Trump could also be worse for Russia and Ukraine. It can go either way. Trump could also be indirectly worse for Russia and Ukraine in that after Trump gets elected, he puts another bunch of idiots in charge that want Trump to be responsible for World War III. And these people would antagonize Russia more because they're not going to get blamed. Trump's going to get blamed and shit hits the fan. So I can see it going bad under Trump. I could also see it being a lot better under Trump, right? I can also see Russia being a little more careful under Trump because Trump's unpredictable. Like Putin was asked, who would he rather have win? Trump or the Democrats? He was asked about it in the last election, about the last election, and he said we would have rather had Hillary. Hillary's more predictable. And he said the same thing about Biden. He implied it. Like, yeah, well, of course you'd rather have Biden. He's more predictable because he's an idiot, right? Like, he's more predictable. Trump is more unpredictable. So that makes it trickier for Russia, and it makes it trickier for Russia to convince other countries not to work with America if Trump is president, because Trump can actually strike deals with other countries that right now Biden is not able to do. Look at Saudi Arabia, look at Turkey, look at many, many other countries. Now, again, what about the Israel-Gaza situation? I can see Trump being a bigger problem for Israel-Gaza situation because I think as pro-Israel Biden is, I think Trump could be more pro-Israel. So I have no idea which direction that one's going to go. Personally, I think Trump is not going to be as pro-Israel as people think he will be, and as he pretends he will be. I think Trump realizes that Israel is in a very bad position, potentially leading to, the non-existence of Israel because everyone's uniting against them. I think Trump sees that, and Biden obviously can't see anything because I don't think his brain functions like that anymore. We had a really, really good question. Friedrich is curious, how would Russia decimate Finland when they can't do so to Ukraine? This is a huge misunderstanding that people have. The reason why Russia is not able to decimate Ukraine, first of all, Ukraine's population was 40 million people. Now it's down to 30 million and less. What's Finland's population? 3 million? We can look this up, right? Population of Finland. 5.5. Sorry, I was close. Okay. First of all, if Russia goes to war with Finland, 80% of them will immediately leave because, unlike Ukraine, these people have more money because they're wealthier, because it's not freaking Ukraine, and they have full access to travel throughout the entire EU. So suddenly the population of Finland has decimated itself. Okay, that's one. Second, don't be fooled by the size of Finland on the map. It's a lot smaller than the map makes it look, and the majority of it is uninhabited. Okay, the biggest misconception on how easy it will be for Russia to decimate Finland, Russia doesn't see the Finnish as Russian cousins. So right now, Russia is battling in East Ukraine, and not only does Russia see Ukrainians as their cousins, they see East Ukrainians as brothers and sisters. So they're not exactly in a rush to kill everything and anything in between. Okay, they're not going to give two shits about the lives of the Finnish. Like, they actually care about the lives of Ukrainians. Contrary to all the propaganda you hear, Russians want this war to end. And for the first year of the war, you would say the majority of Russians didn't want any Ukrainians killed. Okay, now they're a little more open to Ukrainians dying than they were in the beginning. Okay, this is why a lot of Russians fled Russia, because they disagreed with the Russian government going and killing their cousins or their very close relatives, because a shit ton of people that are half Russian, half Ukrainian, you're literally listening to one right now. Okay, that's not the case when it comes to Finland. Okay, Russia couldn't care less about the Finnish lives. Okay, and that's why it would be a hell of a lot easier for Russia to unleash all the bombs at their disposal on the Finnish population. So yes, the Russia-Finland war will be a lot easier than the Russia-Ukraine war, because there isn't a mental barrier here and concern for lives of the people.
It's not a civil war anymore. It's just a normal one.
Correct. Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. I find Ukraine's simpage just unbelievable at this point. Like, I get it when things happen like October 7th or, standing with Ukraine or COVID. I get it that for the next week or so, you might be standing with the current thing as you sort of get inundated with propaganda and your instincts lead you to where they're supposed to lead you. But how is anyone still out there fucking serious with the Ukraine flag in the bio and all that? How? I just don't understand how people haven't woken up to this yet. It's a joke. The entire thing should have been negotiated. Diplomacy should have been attempted right at the beginning. It was. Boris Johnson flew over there and sabotaged the whole thing, and it was over. And now hundreds of thousands, millions of people are dead. And it's just a no-brainer. There's literally no need for any more violence. It could be finished in 5 minutes if it wasn't for complete corruption and useful idiots.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the same thing happened with the Ukraine war that happened with COVID. You had kind of this manufactured consent that a lot of people talk about. You had this big propaganda and media push, which works. It works in the short term. It just doesn't work in the long term. It worked in the short term, and it got a whole bunch of people putting Ukrainian flags on, their profile pic, and people were like, out there. But after a while, that starts to wear off. At some point, people start to think for themselves. It takes a while, like with COVID, but it didn't take that much longer that long with Ukraine.
Yeah. Oh, one more thing I needed to look at, and that was the Ukrainian currency, and it's not good. It is looking very, very ugly for the Ukrainian currency. If you guys remember, I used to talk about this back in the day. Here's the Russian ruble versus the dollar. It has been appreciating since October of last year. So it's been appreciating for about a year. It just made its high versus the dollar. So the least amount of rubles per dollar just a few weeks ago. And as Russia will continue to advance in Ukraine, there will be more confidence in the Russian ruble. Now, Russian government doesn't mind the ruble slowly depreciating. Like every country, kind of likes, like every country likes to like their currency slightly depreciate. And but look at the Ukrainian currency. It is starting to go back into hyperinflation. I have been pointing to a 25% devaluation of the Ukrainian currency for a while now, and it has begun. You can see it right here. It has already devalued 11% on its way to a 25% devaluation. It happened slowly and then suddenly. So this could happen in a single day. Let's see what happens now that this NATO summit in the U.S. has ended. Russia is speeding up its its military effort. So something's going to have to give here. And I continue to point to this graphic. The moment the Russian ruble is worth more per dollar than the Ukrainian currency, things will change. Russia can then take over the country, start to take over the eastern side of the Dnieper economically instead of militarily. They could just tell people you can keep your salary, but your salary is now in rubles if your city or your region wants to, have a referendum and join Russia. Okay, they can just, hey, everything stays the same, your salary stays the same, everything, your pension stays the same. It will now be in rubles instead of in Ukrainian hryvnia. It gives Russia a huge edge economically over Ukraine once it breaks parity, the Ukrainian currency versus the Russian currency.
Tone, I hope you're right on that. I hope you're right on that. But however, one thing that I'm always careful on is just to look at the value of the currency as an indicator of who's winning the war. That might be a little bit dangerous because sometimes the opposite happens where the value of the currency goes up, not because the country is winning the war, but because they're losing the war. And the value of the currency goes up because the government is no longer able to function and print more of the currency. So it becomes scarcer and more valuable, like what happened with the Iraqi dinar after the fall of Saddam Hussein. So hyperinflation is something different, but if it's just slowly appreciating value, it doesn't necessarily be good for the country. So using that as an indicator, I would be a little bit cautious on that. But I do hope you're right as far as the economic power being better for Russia to be able to bring about peace.
I'll have to look into that. I find it hard to believe that a country will cut back on its printing at the end of a war. Let me just look at the comments because I do have to wrap it up. Let me see if there's anything interesting. Oh, Frederick followed up. Not a bad answer. Thank you. Didn't realize the population collapse of Ukraine was so severe. Yeah, it was severe. And here's what people don't realize. Here's what they won't show you on CNN. Ukrainian refugees by country. Check this out. The highest number of Ukrainian refugees went to Russia.
What's the asterisk?
That's a good question. And I thought the numbers were way higher, actually. I'm not really trusting this Statistica article. Sure. Let me see here. What is the asterisks? I hate it when they put an asterisk and then they don't tell you what it is. Good job, guys. Additional information. No, they're not telling me. Okay, interesting. I thought it was way higher, the disparity. That's the total here? That's 3 million.
The asterisk is on the right there, including 65,000 Ukrainians who were, and then you have to scroll down in that box, who were granted refugee or temporary asylum status, as well as those recorded in the country in 2022.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's all right. It's not 64 out of 1.2 million. The number is actually way higher. I mean, I'm questioning these numbers. And wow, I had no idea it was that many in Germany. But yeah, I think this is a grossly underrated statistic. I think there was a lot more. How old is this data? Oh, wow, it's actually recent. Huh. Wow, I thought the numbers were way higher, and I thought Russian was way higher. I thought Russia was close to about 3 million. I thought this number was more than about double this number. And if this number is double this number, it's well, that's the thing, right? A lot of Ukrainians are Russian citizens. So it's potentially they're not counting those, right? It's because if you are a dual citizen, you're not a refugee. So a lot of Ukrainians were Russian citizens. With a population of over 40 million, I would say easily a few million people were dual citizens, Russia, Ukraine, even though that's technically illegal according to Ukraine, but no one in Ukraine gave a shit. Well, Russia certainly didn't care if you were a dual citizen. And I don't think those people are being counted. So I saw other statistics. I think this number is closer to over 3 million, and they went to Russia. And that brings the total number of people leaving Ukraine to over 10 million, if this number is over 3 million. And that's kind of how I'm looking at the situation. Okay, real quick.
So I sent you a Telegram DM regarding something from Cynthia Lummis, if you want to talk about it on the stream or not. Bitcoin and politics related.
All right, let me.
Yep, that's it. You got it in front of you. That's the one.
Did you hear that?
I didn't listen to it. No, you can play it if you want.
No, but did you hear it? Like when I hit play?
Oh no, I didn't hear. I don't hear anything from the video.
Okay, I have to share computer sound. Okay. Let's try this.
No central bank digital currency. I'm so happy about that because that's a means of surveillance of the American people. But we want to make sure people can have individual wallets for their Bitcoin so they have that sovereign over their own money. We know we want the US dollar to remain strong. And actually having Bitcoin in reserve can help the US dollar remain strong. No central.
So she wants the government to buy Bitcoin.
I don't. Not this government.
Because you don't want a strong dollar. Well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you do.
Well, no, because like I see. So again, this is the big. This is the same debate that I had with people that were huge fans of Jason Lowry's book. You know, why the government should be buying Bitcoin for defense. You know, like my view is, my view was that Jason Lowry is part of the, you know, the U.S. military, the U.S. And according to his view, and according to many people's views, the U.S. military is a noble, good thing for the world. And my view is that the U.S. military is not a noble, good thing for the world. So no, I don't really want to help the U.S. government, who does more evil shit around the world than good things around the world. And help. I don't want to help. I don't want to help them, right? Do more evil shit. Now, if the U.S. government was more on the side of the people, if the U.S. government was a little more noble, then yeah, I would be more than happy to help the U.S. government remain in this max power. But no, I personally would rather see the U.S. split into like 4 or 5 countries, and then I, as an American citizen for now, will get to choose which of the 4 Americas I get to live in, and of course I'll choose the one with the most freedom, and maybe that will give me another 100 years of runway. Not that I'm going to live through it all, but my family.
Well, I have a lot with Jason Lowry. Jason Lowry was making the argument that Bitcoin miners are weapons as a way of saying, using the Second Amendment to protect Bitcoin miners from government interference, which is the worst possible argument you can make if you want to protect Bitcoin miners by saying that they're weapons. This has already been discussed by the Supreme Court, and it's already been decided that encryption is speech. So the First Amendment is the argument he should be making. He's making the exact worst argument to try to protect Bitcoin miners from government interference when he should be making the First Amendment argument. So I got a lot of issues with Jason Lowry, but I wouldn't mind if the U.S. government started buying Bitcoin. That would be very good for Bitcoiners. at least in the short term.
If the U.S. government started mining,
Mining, that's an interesting one because I don't necessarily know I would want that.
I misheard you. I thought that's
Buying
what
Bitcoin, yes.
I thought that's what you said.
No,
Did
he
you
said
say-
No, I said buying. I said buying.
Okay.
So bye. All right, guys. Hey, I gotta get going. Since I'm in New York City for 2 more days, I gotta go to a dinner, and it's like an hour-and-a-half drive because I live in the most insane city in the world, where
in Nashville?
they
Are you going to go
where
to
they
Nashville?
decide to solve their traffic problems by making 3-lane highways into 2-lane highways. That's the city that I'm in right now.
I'm a small blocker, man. 300
Yeah.
kilobytes.
I
Let's
agree.
do
I
it.
agree with people get surprised, but I actually agree with diets, and we can get into a discussion on that.
Patrick,
People are
your
surprised
mic
about
is actually really bad. You're breaking up. I didn't know. I don't understand what you said.
Are you going to Nashville?
I said that I'm actually I can argue in favor of narrower roads to increase throughput.
Mechanic, what'd you say?
Are you going to Nashville?
I am not. I have no plans to go to Nashville. If things can always change, someone may offer me, a workshop where I can get paid, and I'll come to Nashville. But I am. I can't. I get no ROI. These events are getting very expensive, and I know I organize events, and I want people to come to my events. But so it's a little hypocritical why I would like people to come to my event, Unconfiscatable, but I can't come to other people's events. But I can't. I mean, there's nothing I can learn there. There's nobody I will meet there that I can't get on a Zoom call. Me being there is just me taking selfies with a bunch of people for the benefit of Bitcoin Magazine. Who I'm not a speaker there. I don't have a free hotel room. It would cost a few grand. I can't. I can't do it.
Fair enough, man. I'm not going to Shitcoin 2024, but there's a bunch of other events at the same time, and I have to go to those.
Yeah, I don't have a business. I don't have a company. I've actually cut back. I'm done with conferences. The only conference I will attend is probably BitBlack only
It's
because I'm friends with
unconfiscatable.
and Unconfiscatable. I'll be there.
Madeira was
Yeah,
good
guys.
too. Atlantis was a good conference, I think. Were you at that one?
No. I'm done. I'm done with too many conferences. I will be at a conference in Prospera if Prospera does a conference. Hopefully they will. I may even donate them Understanding Bitcoin for them to just use the brand to do their conference. I will be there.
That's cool.
You guys heard it here first. This will be the last Unconfiscatable in Las Vegas. The Unconfiscatable Poker Tournament will be alive. I will bring the Unconfiscatable Poker Tournament to another conference. But as far as a conference goes, this is it. It's too stressful. It doesn't make any money. We will have a great time. I am aiming for 200 people in Vegas. And even if we have just 100 people, it's going to be an awesome time. So this is it. If you've been there before, you know what an awesome time it is. If you've always been thinking about going to Unconfiscatable, this is going to be your last chance to do so. I'm sure you heard it from everyone. I've never heard any complaints. You will never find people saying they didn't have a good time. You will never find people saying it wasn't worth the money. And this year, it's only $300. I cannot make it any cheaper. It's on a weekday. Hotel rooms are about $50. It's as cheap as it will possibly be. Probably the cheapest event to go to out of any other event in the West. I'm sure you can have a cheaper event in Thailand. And hopefully I'll see everybody there. Mechanic, hopefully you'll be back.
See you,
Good.
man.
See everybody there.
All right, guys. Time to get going. Hope you enjoyed the show, and I will see you all on the next one. Thanks for helping out, Patrick, and good luck with teaching people about how to solve wallets.
Thank you for sharing it. And I know you're busy, so I'm going to let you go.